Hi everyone, John Heath here again for Milton Rose Learning with another Let's Learn video on Jekyll and Hyde context. So if you're here to unravel the perils of Victorian London, then you're in the right place. So we're going to look at some of the key contextual factors together. We'll unpick those underpinning the novella. Then we'll look at how that context plays out in action, how it actually affects the text itself. And then we'll unpick some of the key contextual quotes, which will be very good to pepper into your essays. Okay then, so if we dive in first with the contextual factors. Now, probably the most fundamental one would be Victorian society at the time when the text was produced. So reputation and respectability, those were big qualities in this period. So Victorian gentlemen were expected to be extremely moral due to Christian morality at the time. And Hyde represents the hidden desires that society forced to repress. So you couldn't kind of let out your true desires if they cut against Victorian social norms. So Hyde represents those kind of hidden desires that are within Victorian society at the time. Also, we've got science versus religion. So rapid scientific progress was being made in this period, and new radical theories such as Charles Darwin, who was arguing that we descended from apes, and the law of evolution, which you can research as well. And that was clashing badly with Christian beliefs at the time. So in terms of the novella, Jekyll's experiments then were raising fears about playing God and whether all of this science was going too far. So there's a really big clash between science and religion underpinning the novella. Okay, then we have the social context. So let's pick out some of this. So first off then, we have the Victorian audience. So it was, as we know, a strict Christian society where reputation and self-control were essential. So Hyde's behaviour exposed the dangers of hidden desires that could be within anybody within Victorian society and which were repressed because the social norms of the day were so strict. Okay. Also, there was a fear of what we call the subconscious, the kind of idea that we've got almost hidden in the back of our brain, this kind of harsher sense of self that we control and that we don't normally let out. So Victorians were uneasy about hidden urges and thoughts beneath the surface of our mind, like in our dreams and things like that. And Stevenson explores then how the human mind can conceal a darker, uncontrollable side, which is obviously symbolised by Hyde himself. Okay, so there's a lot of psychological kind of theory going on here. It's very good to kind of get your head around that for any essays and exams. Okay, then we have what are Stevenson's views then? Well, Stevenson as a writer then, clearly here he is critiquing Victorian morality. He's seeing it as maybe too strict and it's actually causing repression and mental kind of issues in Victorian society. So he's highlighting the dangers of repressing one's true nature in a society obsessed with appearances and being moral and being proper and right. Because then we can't live our fullest life because we're being constrained by society, just like Dr. Jekyll is. Also, Stevenson is very concerned with the consequences of unchecked science. So Stevenson warned that unregulated advance of science could lead to destructive consequences. Science is all well and good if it advances, but it needs to have moral guidelines. We can't just let science do its thing totally because it could lead to kind of, horrific experiments such as the Doctor's when he turns into Mr. Hyde. That's an example of science going a bit crazy and not being controlled properly. So I think Stevenson is definitely trying to kind of warn us about the dangers of science if we don't control it properly. Okay, now how does this context then play out? Well, let's just have a little look. So, context in action, then, the first point really is reputation and respectability. So, Jekyll's double life, because obviously he is Mr. Hyde as well, reflects Victorian society's obsession with outward respectability and hidden sins. Victorian society was kind of looked very nice on the outside, but there was, if you do some independent research, there was loads of kind of dodgy stuff and kind of unusual kind of practices going on behind the scenes because they were being repressed. So that kind of clash between Victorian society's repression and people's liberty to live the life that they wanted causes massive kind of friction in the novella, and that's kind of very clear with Jekyll and then Hyde. Okay, then we have science versus religion, as we know. So Jekyll's experiments show the tension between new scientific ideas, such as Charles Darwin and the theory of evolution, and traditional Christian beliefs, which were kind of very much in kind of conflict with them, such as obviously Christians believe in that the universe was created by God, and then new scientific theories such as Darwin saying, well, actually we descended from apes. So the two scientific theories kind of really clashed, and that's part of that bigger, broader conflict between science and religion, which Stevenson was very interested in and which he explores within the novella and within the characters specifically of Jekyll and Hyde. And then finally, London as a setting, which doesn't really get focused on by many of my students, I must say. It's a really good one to pick on. So London's duality. So there's a split between Jekyll's home, where he lives, very kind of respectable, and Hyde's haunts and where he goes when he kind of turns crazy. And it mirrors the divided, shadowy nature of Victorian London. This was very much the time of characters or people like Jack the Ripper, for instance, the kind of mass murderer and things like that. Victorian London did have this kind of almost seedy underbelly that's writers like Stevenson were very interested in kind of exploring, and they kind of do through Hyde, where he goes on these kind of murderous rampages. So London is a place of danger and peril in the novella. Okay, now let's round off by looking at some really good contextual quotes. Okay, so first off then, let's look at Dr. Jekyll's duality. So Henry Jekyll says a great quote. He says, "Man is not truly one, but truly two." Very, very kind of deep quote there, psychologically. So it shows Jekyll's belief that all humans have a dual nature. We almost have two personalities living in our heads, the conscious and the subconscious. And that reflects Victorian social anxieties about the hidden immoral desires that might kind of live within us beneath a respectable surface. Okay, and that's obviously setting the scene for Jekyll, symbolising our rational, respectable parts of our brain, and Mr. Hyde, who symbolises obviously our subconscious, the kind of more hidden immoral desires that don't follow any social rules. Then we have another one from Henry Jekyll. He's looking very brooding at his desk there. Victorian reputation. So the moment I choose, I can be rid of Mr. Hyde. That's what Henry Jekyll says. Now, Jekyll believes that he can control his kind of more animated, more violent side with Mr. Hyde, and that reflects the Victorian obsession with self-control and respectability. But Stevenson is obviously criticising that, as we know, because if you read the novella, or you will, Jekyll then struggles to turn back from Mr. Hyde, so he gets taken over by his kind of more subconscious, immoral side, so it doesn't really turn out very well for him. Okay, and then we've got Mr. Utterson, Mr. Rationalism. Okay, so let's have a little look at him. So Utterson says, and remember Utterson is very much the narrator of the novella, if he be Mr. Hyde, I shall be Mr. Seek. Okay, a bit of a play on words there by Gabriel Utterson. So Utterson's pun, and he's playing on words there, shows his logical approach to mystery. The Victorians loved logic, and they loved working things out and problems and things like that. So he goes out, he sets out to kind of try and find who Hyde is and his true identity. So that's really reflecting Victorian faith in our reason and our rationality and logic, though the novel suggests that some things can't actually be rationally explained because we never really can get to the pitch of Mr. Hyde as a character and how evil he is and kind of why he was so evil. So rationalism here very much has a limit. It's great to have logic, but it doesn't solve all mysteries in the universe or in the novella. Okay, so just to kind of give a really nice little overview at the end, hopefully that's been a really good little overview into the Jekyll and Hyde historical context, very deep. So we've started by looking at contextual factors. So we had a look at some of the Victorian society and social norms and the duality of our minds, the conscious and the subconscious. We looked at the clash between science and religion, which was really going on at the time, and also the setting of London, which was quite a grimy kind of gritty place in this period. And then we finished off by having a nice look at some of the key quotes that would be great for you to learn for your exams and to pepper into some of your essays if possible. Okay. So it just remains to say, really, if you found this video useful, please feel free to hit the like, subscribe and tap the bell icon so you'll never miss another video again. We'll obviously be back soon with more Jekyll and Hyde kind of videos and content. And it just remains to say, really, obviously, thanks for watching and we'll see you soon. Take care.